Good morning. I hope everyone had a good weekend and a pretty good Monday. And hopefully I'll keep seeing more of you on our Zoom sessions. But for today's math lesson, we're doing lesson 150, which is a temperature review. So we're going to be doing a lot of review things, just double checking, making sure you understand everything and know how to do it correctly, because you do have a test coming up. And this is used with your worksheet pages 271 and 272. So we're going to start off with some mental math to get your brains in gear. Right, on this beautiful Tuesday morning is when you'll be watching this. All right, you have five problems I'm going to give you today. So the first one, 63 divided by 7 plus 9 divided by 2 plus 1 divided by 5 plus 19 divided by 3 times 7 equals. You should have 49 if you did it correctly. 49 is the answer to that one. All right, next one, 72 divided by 6 plus 12 divided by 6 times 4 plus 4 divided by 5 plus 14 divided by 3 equals. Did you get 6? Because that's the correct answer if you did that. Good job if you got it. Here's the next one. 9 times 6 minus 5 divided by 7 times 6 plus 8 minus 14 divided by 4 equals. You should have 9 if you calculated correctly. It might have lost you when you had to subtract 14, but the answer is 9 at the end. Here's the next one. 5 times 4 plus 3 plus 7 divided by 5 plus 8 divided by 7 plus 12 equals. Did you get 14? That's it. Last one. 7 plus 2 times 3 plus 3 plus 9 divided by 3 minus 6 plus 18 equals. Did you get 25? 25 is the correct answer. Good job if you've got all 5, and I'm proud of you, those that you continue to actually work and improve and try hard, even if you don't get them all, but you're making progress and getting more of them, or able to follow along further into the problem, then that shows that you're making improvement. So next thing we're going to go over is our flashcards, reviewing some concepts and things. You will see some geometry, formulas, and also some temperature to review that, since it's temperature review, today's lesson. All right, so point, line segment. Can you see these? All right. Line, ray, angle, intersecting lines, perpendicular lines, parallel lines, similar triangles or shapes, congruent, parallelogram, rectangle, square, rhombus, trapezoid, pentagon. You shouldn't have to count the sides. This shape should start looking familiar to you. Hexagon, heptagon, octagon. Remember, that is a vertex where 2 line segments meet. Diagonal. All right, now we're going to go over some formulas. You should be able to remember the formulas for these. Okay. Circumference, you should remember, is pi times diameter. If we have a radius, we're going to have to double it in order to use pi times diameter. Area of a circle, you should automatically know, is pi r squared. No, pi's are not square, but to find the area of that circle, what fills inside, pi times the radius squared. So if we have a diameter, you're going to have to cut it in half to use in this formula. Okay. You should remember base times height. Okay, anytime we have parallelogram, even a rectangle, length and width and base and height can be the same. All right. 1/2 times the base times the height. A lot of you are forgetting that half part. and I'm getting a lot of base times height for triangle area. It's 1/2 the base times the height. How about some perimeter? This one should be familiar. Double the length plus double the width. How about this one? Perimeter should be side times 4. It is perimeter, right? Yeah, it is. All right. Length times width or base times height. I just said it a minute ago. And then how about this one? You should remember it's side squared or side times side. 144, I want you to start having this memorized. 9. Anyone remember this one? 43,560. I know there are some of you that have made it a point to remember this. Good job. We don't use it very often, but it's nice to have it in our memory. All right, 640 is what the answer should be. Okay. All right, now some temperatures. I can't see which one I showed you. All right, you should know that this is 32 degrees when we're talking about Fahrenheit. Okay, the freezing point of water is 32 degrees. Okay. This is Celsius. 37 degrees is what's considered average body temperature when you're in the Celsius scale. Okay. How about the boiling point? Do you remember that it's 100? Remember, Celsius temperatures, or those scales as far as these boiling points and freezing points, are usually easier to remember. Okay. Freezing point, you should know, is 0 degrees. And I dropped them. All right. 98.6 is what you should have. That would be the average body temperature. Last one. 212. Remember, the Fahrenheit ones are always going to be higher than the Celsius ones. So that was it for that review. Now we're going to go ahead. I'm going to move to the board into my book. We're going to do some sample problems, just like the sections in your worksheet, to have a review. I will go over a couple of the answers so that you'll be able to check yourself on a couple things before you finish the entire worksheet, front and back. All right. So on page 271, you've got a class practice. I'm going to move this over here a little bit. That works. We've got rounding temperatures to the nearest whole degree. I'm not going to go over this with you. We've done this so much this year. I'm sure you've got that one down pat. Watch out for your fractions. All right, section 2, though, is converting temperatures. So let's go ahead and practice by converting these two as review. And we're going to use our formulas to help us remember what it is that we are doing. Okay, and we're always going to round to the nearest whole degree. It even says that in the directions in your book right there. So this isn't any of your book problems, but it's reviewing. We've got our formula, 9/5 times the Celsius temperature plus 32 is how we're going to get it to Fahrenheit. So we're going to use that formula. 9/5 times our Celsius temperature, and I'm going to go ahead and convert it to a fraction over 1 because I know I'm going to need to do that. Plus 32, so that's where we're going to get our answer from. There's nothing we can cross cancel. Okay? So we're going to do 9 times 19, which is 81 plus 90. Okay? 5 over 1, or 5 times 1, not over 1. Plus 32. Okay. 171, we can divide by 5. I know it's going to go in 3 times. Well, thinking ahead. 4 times 5 is 20. I'm going to put a decimal point and a 0 because I'm going to go one place so that I know where I'm going to round my temperature to. All right, 34.2 is closest to 34. So we end up with, I'm going to move this down a little bit. Give myself a little more space. There we go. So we're going to round that to 34. So that all I'm left with is adding that 32. Now remember, you're always going to check yourself because your Fahrenheit answer always should be higher than that, and usually by quite a bit. All right, so 34 and 32. (19 degrees Celsius is going to be closest to 66 degrees Fahrenheit as far as to the nearest whole degree. All right, then the next one, we have a formula for converting to Celsius when we're given Fahrenheit, and it's a little bit of a reverse of this one. So now it's 5/9 times, but we have parentheses, which means we have to do this first, Fahrenheit minus 32. Okay. So we're going to subtract first because order of operations, remember we've learned, has told us we've got to do what's in parentheses first. It's shouting out, hey, do this and take care of this before you do any other operation, right? And if you need to, go ahead and write it to the side. There's nothing wrong with that. All right, 13 minus 2. Wow. What am I doing? Let's try this again, Mrs. Nightingale. Wow. There. All right, this becomes an 11. There we go. All right, so what we have is 5/9 times our answer here. But this, again, I'm going to put over a fraction because I'm going to need to do that. And thankfully, I can cross cancel here because they are both divisible by 9. Then I get a smaller problem. 5 times 9, 45 over 1. So 45 degrees Celsius is our answer. And it would make sense because this is a lot smaller than our Fahrenheit temperature. So on section 2, let's do A. You're going to do the work, pause, and then we're going to give the answer. All right, you've come back. Hopefully you finished it. If you set it up, you should have done 9/5 times 65 and then added 32. Your end answer should be 149 degrees to the nearest whole degree. So even if it doesn't go in evenly, like we had this one, it wasn't exactly even, but we did round it. B, you shouldn't need any help with. There's no converting, right? It's just a simple measurement. You already know 212 is the boiling point of Fahrenheit. So 100 should be the boiling point for Celsius, and that should be automatic without any calculations or formulas. So watch out for when they put those in there. It's to see if you're paying attention. C is another converting Celsius. I'm going to jump to D where it's converting Fahrenheit. So do D. All right, if you've come back, you should have subtracted 32 first, so 86 minus 32, then multiply by 5/9. You should end up with 30 degrees as your answer. All right, we're not going to check over all of these. Excuse me for a second. So you're going to finish this section, yes, even the green letters, to get that practice in. Again, you've got a test coming up. All right, section 3, solving for x. Let's practice solving equations because that's what this section is about. Okay. Again, our goal is to get the variable alone. So we have a lot of stuff with it. Remember, we always look at the side without the variable to see if there's something we can simplify there. There's not. So your next step is to add 6. We've got to get rid of this. It's not attached. We talked about the baby and the older kid. And again, to keep it balanced, in order to keep it equal, I've got to do the same side, the same operation on both sides. That gets rid of this. You all should be showing your work like this, and I'm seeing some of you get lazy in this matter. Not all of you, but some of you. And then, of course, on this side now we have 9. How do I get x ln? Hopefully you remembered. It is to multiply. Remember, parentheses means multiply. So that this is gone. I've kept it equal by multiplying on both sides. X is now alone. Yay! It's going to throw a party. 9 times 5, 45. Here's my answer, but I have to check. So instead of X, I'm going to use 45 over 5 minus 6 equals 3. 45 over 5 is 9. 9 minus 6 equals 3. Well, I get 3, which equals 3, so it checks out. Go ahead and do A. This is one where we had to use a proportion, but you're still solving for X. Solve for X. All right, let's see if you did it correctly. I'm going to erase this here so there's not a bunch of nonsense on the board. We're going to come to this in a little bit. All right, so we have 7 over 9. I couldn't remember for a second. 7 over 9 equals X over 14. Did you remember you have to cross multiply or have cross products here? So 7 times 14. You should know it's 70 plus 28, so that would be 98. And then what did we have to do with this? It's the only thing left we haven't used. We divide. Okay. We know, or you can have it like this, either way. We know it goes into 90 10 times, and there would be 8 left over. So you could have it in a mixed number with a fraction like this, 10 and 8/9, or you could divide this way. And still write it as a remainder 8/9. Or you could do it, no, it wouldn't be 9. 8 times 9. And I can see it's going to be repeating, and I only go 2 places so that I know I could round that to, okay. You could also do it like that. I like using the mixed number, it just cuts it shorter, but it's up to you if you prefer working with decimals. Remember always to go to the second place so you know what to round this to, because we're not rounding to the nearest whole number here, we're rounding to the nearest 10th when we're doing it this way. Or if you have a mixed number, you can use the fraction. All right, go ahead and solve B. You solved B. If you're not finished, pause. If you're done, hopefully remember that 2 cubed is, 8, not 2 times 3. It's not going to be 6. And then you had to multiply by 6. Your end answer is X is 48. Okay. All right, section 3, you're going to finish on your own as well. Getting to section 4, just to review when we're using compound measures, especially borrowing with our subtracting. Remember, we can't do 3 inches minus 6 inches, so we do have to borrow a foot, which means we're borrowing 12 inches to put with this 3. Okay. You should know by now where I got the 15. I borrowed a foot, which we know is 12 inches. 12 inches along with this 3 inches we already had is 15 inches. Now I can subtract 9 inches. That looks lovely. And 5 feet minus 2 feet is 3 feet. Okay. Go ahead and do A, where you're subtracting here. And then unpause. I'll leave that up for a moment. And let's check your answer. All right, you had to convert and borrow a mile. Remember, a mile is 1,760 yards. So we had to put that with the 15 yards. When you subtract, you should have 1 mile, 1,725 yards. Okay, so that should be your answer, 1 mile, 1,725 yards for your answer for A. You're going to finish B and C on your own, where you're multiplying and then C you're just converting into ounces. All right, on the back, I want to do number 5, A, B, and C together, and then number 6, A and B I want to do together. I'm still seeing confusion on number 6. And number 5, it's been a while since we've done, and they're all 3 different forms. So I want to make sure that we know how to set them up properly. So we're going to do number 5, where we're talking about commission. Now, A should be the most straightforward one because it says their sales are $5,000, their rate of commission is 5%. What is their actual commission? And A, they even started to set it up for you on the side, okay, where it says 5% of, wow, I can't read that number, there we go, of 5,000. I lost my place for a second. We've done percent problems so many times that this should be very familiar, remembering that of means what? Multiply. So we're going to have to multiply 5,000 times, don't say 5, what does it need to be? 0.05. So you should be doing this work along with me. You might even be a little bit ahead of me because I'm stopping to explain for those who still need it. But you're not just staring at a screen. Do this work. I'm going to expect you to show it on your paper. 5 times 0, 5 times 0, 5 times 0, 5 times 5. We don't need to multiply by 0, right? We just need to make sure that we've got that decimal point in the right places. 2 spaces in the problem, 2 spaces in my answer, and of course, it's money, so we have to have our dollar sign. So in your chart, you should have, as your answer, you can have the decimal point and the zeros if you want, but they're not needed. This should be in that 3rd box in the chart for A, 5A. Okay. Now B is set up differently. Notice, they give us the sales, $300. They give us the commission, $75, but they're not giving us the percentage rate or the rate of commission. So B sets it up in a word form for us to hopefully jog our memories. How are we going to find the percentage? It says $75 is what percent, and I don't know if they use the word or the symbol, but I'm putting the word, of $300. And we've done these a lot. So when you're dealing with commission and you're trying to find the rate at which they're earning commission, we know how to set these up. When we're finding what percent this is of that, we set it up as a fraction first of all, and then we can simplify. Dividing by 5, I'm going to go, actually, you know what? I'm going to go by 25. I'm going to get 3, and then for a 12. Okay. 3 over 12, I can simplify very easily to 1/4, and you should know this by now. What is 1/4 as a percentage? %, right? 4, 8, 12 by 25. 25% is the percentage rate of commission, which is actually a very high rate. And then C, they give us the commission rate. They give us the amount of commission that the person made, but they don't give us the beginning sales amount. Notice over to the side, it says 120 is 16% of what number? And we've done these. Do you remember how we work backwards? Think of A. We had to multiply the sales by the percent to find the commission. How are we going to use the commission and the percent to find the sales? Well, if we multiply to find the commission, we're going to divide to find the sales. Our dollar amount is going to be what's going to go in the box. Okay, so we always multiply by the percentage or divide by the percentage when we're trying to find the original. So we've got 120 divided by 0.16. Do not forget, that means we're going to have to move that decimal point because we are dividing by a decimal. So really, in our answer, our decimal point is going to go here. Very important. Some of you remember to put the carets, which is great, but the whole purpose of that is to show us where it goes in the answer. So don't forget that or you get the problem incorrect. All right, 16 can't go into 1. It can't go into 12. It can go into 120. Too wrong. 80 plus 48, too much. So let's try 7. 7 plus 4 is 11. That works. And we're left with 8. Bring it down. Let's try 5. 3. Perfect. But we're not done. We still have this. It goes in 0 times, but it's important to have that there because the answer is not 75. The answer is $750. That was the amount of the original sales based on what we knew about the commission and their rate. All right, so your 3 boxes, A should be $250, B should be 25%, and then C, $750. And your work should be there, not just answers. You should have been doing this along. If you didn't, you might want to pause it and do that now, or I'll count off when I get your worksheets next week. All right, so please make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing the right way you're supposed to be doing it. All right, number 6. Again, I went over the formulas in those flashcards, and here's where a lot of you are not being as careful as you could be. Some of you are. You've got this down and you know exactly what you need to use in which formula. Great. I'm really, really proud of you. For those of you that are still struggling, let's go through and practice this together. So C, we're only going to do A and B, or for 6, we're only going to do A and B. Don't worry about C and D. Everyone can cross those off. Those are the only ones that we are crossing off for these pages, okay? So we've got to fill in the diameter or the radius, looking at both of those problems, and then we've got to find the circumference in the area. Now remember, your formula for circumference is pi times diameter. Your formula for area is pi times the radius squared. So if we're looking at the chart in A, we've got 0.4 meters as the radius. What is our diameter? If your radius is 0.4, remember we always said double the diameter? Here's your diameter. Why is that important? Because both formulas use a different number. They still use pi, but what do we do with these numbers matters so that we can find the correct circumference, which is the distance around the outside of the circle, or the area, which is the amount that fills in the entire circle shape, okay? So if we only have one and we're not ready to use it, we're going to get something wrong over here. So let's find the circumference first. Pi times diameter. That's pretty easy. Pi times diameter, we simply multiply. 8 times 4, again, you're doing this with me. 8 plus 3, and 8 times 3 plus 1. There's nothing else to multiply, but be careful. We have 3 decimal places in our problem. We need 3 decimal places in our answer. Let's see, it says round to the nearest hundredth in our directions. So we need to make sure we use this to help us round. In this case, problem A, our circumference, we're going to round to 2.51 meters. Okay, just pi times diameter. Now for the same circle, we need to find area. Well, our formula is pi times the radius squared. So the first thing I need to do is multiply this. 4 times 4 is 16. I have 2 decimal places. I need 2 decimal places in my answer. So it's not just 1.6, it's not just 16, it's 0.16. We've done the radius squared. Now we can multiply by pi. So 3.14 times 16. Let's go ahead and solve. Again, you need to be showing your work. This isn't just Mrs. Nightingale works for her fun, which I do enjoy math, but the whole point of it being fun is helping you learn and making sure that you're understanding the concepts. Where are my decimal points going to go? Well, I've got 4 here. I need 4 here. I need to round to the nearest hundredth. Now, I can put 0.50. I could also put 0.5 because we don't need that 0, so it is up to you. Although they've asked for the nearest hundredth, and because it's area, you do need to remember that it's square meters. Okay? So we needed both of these units in order to solve both of these formulas. Some of you are doing pi times diameter and pi times diameter squared. Others are doing pi times radius squared and then pi times radius. You've got to remember when you're using those formulas what piece of information from that circle needs to be plugged in. All right, next circle, problem B. We'll erase that. Notice this time they give us the diameter 3 1/2, is it inches? Feet, 3 1/2 feet. Let's go back and fill in the radius. What is it going to be? Well, we know half of 3 is 1 1/2. What is half of half? A quarter. So hopefully you're able to remember how to change measurements. Okay. If not, you could always have done this. 3 1/2 divided by 2. Okay. So if you can't remember how to divide, this is 1 1/2, this would be a fourth. Putting that together would be this. Remember, you can always use your math solving. Dividing by 2. Right? So we have 7 halves. Let's change this to a multiplication. Let's flip this. You get 7 over 4, which is, hey, 1 3/4. So we can always divide fractions. Don't just say, oh, well, I can't figure it in my head, I give up. Use the stuff that we've been taught and use that to help you cut it in half and get the correct measurements. Now we're doing pi times diameter. Do you remember the fraction that we used? Rather than converting them all to decimals, you can use the fraction form. And if you remember, pi can either be 3.14, which we're used to using, or 22/7. So you could convert these to decimals if you want. To me, it just makes more sense to use the fraction form. So that's what I'm going to do on here with you guys right now. So let's find circumference. It's pi 22/7 times diameter. So let's go ahead and do 22/7 times, make this an improper fraction again, 7 over 2. Oh, thank goodness we can cross cancel. Now, so much easier than using the decimal version for this one because we end up with 11 feet. And because it was circumference, there's no square units, right? So when we've got fraction, remembering this fraction form makes it so much simpler than trying to change everything to decimals. There are a couple of you who prefer only dealing with decimals. You could do that as well and do 3.14 times 3.5. All right, for the rest of us, we're moving on to area. Same circle, but this time we have pi times radius squared. So I have to do the radius squared first. We have to, okay? So this is going to be 7/4 times 7/4. There's no cross canceling. We're just left with 49/16. Once we've done the radius squared, because PEMDAS, remember, parentheses, exponents, so we do that first. Now multiply by pi. Again, I can cross cancel with this problem. Thank goodness. I can divide these both by 2. All right, so 7 times 11 over 8. Okay. So if you remember, 8 times 9 is 72. That would leave us 5 left over. 9 5/8 square feet, because area is always measured in square units, and even our formula gives us a little clue. All right, so your chart for A, make sure you filled it in correctly. If you need to pause or rewind and go back and do the work, right, it gives you a little space here, then go ahead. But you should have 0.8 meters, the circumference is 2.51 meters, and the area is 0.50 meters squared, or 0.5. That would be perfectly fine. For B, your radius, we got 1 3/4 feet. All right, for our circumference, which I erased, we had 11 feet, and then 9 5/8 square feet for the area, which is still left up there. You can cross off C and D, and then section 7, you're going to solve all on your own. Notice 7B is very similar to 5B that we already did up top. It doesn't say it's commission, but it's the same exact setup, finding the percent. You've got some division, some subtraction, following order of operations, percentages, multiplying, dividing, and adding. All right, so everything on these 2 pages should be done except for 6C and 6D. Those 2 parts of the chart don't need to be filled in. I hope that was helpful. Keep in mind, you do have a test coming up. I believe it's next Tuesday. So be prepared. If you have questions, please ask them. That's what I'm here for. And you can, of course, call, text me, send a message on Dojo, or if you want to schedule a time in any of our Zoom sessions to stay afterwards and ask some questions, that would work too. So have a good day, and I'll see you all the next time.